Well, hello again. For those who are interested in our little old garden we plant every year, we're doing really good on tomatoes. We've harvested at least this many already, and these are the last of them right here. And we've got some buried down in there deep. No problem on tomatoes this year. We did really good. And the cucumber plants, we got a ton of them over here too. We've been giving some of them away. We can't eat them all. And this is 4 plants, you know. I only wanted to grow 2, but the wife, she wanted 4. Now the cucumbers have really gone ape this year. We have gotten tons and tons of cucumbers. I'll show you the ones I just picked a second ago. These are the ones I just picked a few minutes ago. I probably waited a little too long on this one and this one, but I didn't see them. How can you not see a cucumber that big? Well, it's easy when you have that many leaves. And all of our cucumbers this year were just from 2 plants. So I think next year I'm just going to grow 1 plant. We got millions of cucumbers. Before we get back to start working on the linkage on this carburetor, I had a comment from one of our good subscribers that said, John, you have the gasket here, the top gasket under the lid, you have it upside down. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you know, I swore I flipped that thing over. It was you know, it needed to be flipped over in the video. I wasn't showing exactly how it went on. I was showing him how to look to figure out which gasket was the right one. But you know, I'm not going to take a chance. I'm certain I've got it on right, but you never know. You have to go back to that spring in here that was backwards. Remember that check valve spring? It can happen, you know. So none of these screws on the top are tight. So I'm going to go ahead and take them out. We're going to lift the top up, and we're going to find out whether or not it's on right. He could be correct. All right, let's see what we got. See, this has got the most, well, I don't see how it's on upside down. There's only actually one way it can go. In order for the holes to be lined up, this hole right here in particular, and this small hole right here, because there's no hole down here. Okay, I think we're good. Essentially what he was saying is it needed to go this way. You know, and it can go either way. It looks like it. The problem is this hole right here is not lined up with any hole in this end. Matter of fact, it hangs over the edge of the carburetor, as you can see. Yeah. So we'll put it back the way it was. But you know, I'm glad he pointed that out. And you know, the more I kept thinking about it, I said, you know, he could be right. I thought I had put it on right. I thought I had flipped it back over, and it was, you know, I made double sure that was correct before I put it on. But, you know, not a problem. I do appreciate his comment. It was a good observation. It was worth checking. The last thing I need to do is put this carburetor back on the car and then find out, hey, dummy, you put the carburetor gasket lid on upside down. Let's get it back together. Now, about this linkage, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look on how to hook it all up, basically. But before I do, I want to go over a couple of the 2 different kinds of clips you'll find in your kit. Now this clip right here, just notice that one has a straight back with a hump in the middle here, and the other one just looks like a little clothespin. The little clothespin ones, they're the ones that go on the end of the shaft. There's a slot in the end of the shaft, and they just clip right over it. One leg goes down at the bottom, one on the top, and then they just snap into the little clip. Which reminds me, this butterfly valve that hooks to your choke here, that link, or this rod, comes down. It comes through from the rear to the front, goes down through the hole, and then again goes from the rear to the front. You have to slide it in from the rear and then put your clip on. Now the other kind of clip you have here is the straight back with the hump in the middle, and that's the type that goes right here. It actually goes down through the hole in the shaft, and the outside goes around here and clips on the outside of the shaft. I suppose you could use this one here, but it's not a good idea. I mean, this has got the slot designed for this kind of clip. But if you don't have this kind of clip, this type here will also work up there. You know, you just run it down through the hole and then clip it on the outside. It works just as good. Now, let me see. We are missing some stuff, which really bugs me to death. You'll notice right here, there is a screw missing. If I get this stuff, let me get it positioned right here. Here we go. Well, not yet. This is the right here. You'll notice this is that rubber screw that goes through here. This screw, it's pretty ingenious the way they did it. If I can stay in focus here, this pencil's causing the problem. But this screw they ran through is supposed to be a nylon, some kind of piece of nylon thing that fastens in there. And what they did was put a screw in with a nut with a piece of rubber hose on the end of that screw, which worked real good. You know, it enabled this thing to hit against it and keep it from, you know, you got to have something there. So that was a pretty good idea. The problem was it wore a little hole, a little trench in there, and I have since turned that rubber around, so this thing now has something fresh to hit against. All right, let's see what we can do about this screw business here. All right, we got one other problem down in here. This is our choke, and down in here where it fastens to the body of the carburetor, you'll see that the gasket is just. The gasket looks like this. This will be the gasket for it, but what they've done is they've only hooked it on one side. This side here is hanging out in the wind. So we're going to have to remove the choke and put that new gasket on and clean it up down there and get it done right. So that's another thing we'll have to do. You know, it amazes me, if I were to take this carburetor and try to mess it up, I don't think I could have done as good a job. Every time I turn around, I'm finding something missing and something not right. It's incredible the way some of these things happen to these car parts. Anyway, what we're going to do, I've decided, is to go ahead and squirt a lot of liquid wrench down in there. Let's get this thing loose. And I may have to put out a plea for one of these nylon stud things. This one here is too short. And hopefully it'll loosen up, because I do need that. I do need the screw, and if need be, we'll just stick with what we've got. That screw on the with the rubber tube on the end, a little hose. I'd rather have something like this. I don't know where to even get one. If anybody has one, which would be longer, which would fit back here on this carburetor instead of this screw with the rubber, I'd appreciate it, or at least send me a picture. Let me know what it looks like. Then I have a better idea. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and just squirt it right now while we're waiting, because I got to go downtown anyway. All right, come on now, get out of there. Must be getting a little low here. Oh, that's good enough. All right. See you when I get back from downtown. Let's get this screw out of here. I need it. It's the only one I've got. There's nothing over there in that car, in that old hulk of a carburetor, but you never know. You know, there might be a rod or something before I'm over that I need. This has got the step thing right here I could always use. Got a few parts here and there. You never know. I think I paid $10 for the stupid thing, but you know, I'll probably get $10 worth of parts out of it, or someone else. You never know. There may be some fella out there that might need a certain part, and if I can help him, I will. Let me go ahead and get that out. Well, the screw does go in. Unfortunately, the threads on the screw are hitting this head right here of this screw that has that rubber thing on it. So, you know, we've got to take off the entire choke housing anyway, or mounting, because we have to get that gasket put on down here. So while I have it out, I'll just take the old moto tool and shave off a little bit of the head of that screw. Just enough to clear those threads. Meanwhile, I'm going to take this thing. It's got quite a bit of rust on it. I'm not going to put it in the vinegar. We're going to drop this down in the old navel jelly, right down in there. I'm going to leave that in there overnight, and I imagine by tomorrow that it's a lot faster than the vinegar. We'll just go ahead and do that number right there, and I'll leave it right here so I don't forget that I have it down in there. By the way, our little container that I put all the screws and nuts in out there from the front end on the cars in that vinegar, it's been about 4 days now. They're sitting in there soaking, having a good old time. Boy, I'll tell you what, that looks good, doesn't it, old goat? Just throw a few crackers in there, man, you could munch that right up with a can of sardines. Well, what's in this box came from Mike's Carburetor Parts. Pretty good place to buy your carburetor parts. This guy, he's got a lot of stuff that you might need. Check him out. All kinds of carburetors, all kinds of parts. And he has kits and specialty items and all kinds of stuff you might need. Look at, you can buy floats and thermostats and all kinds of stuff, which is basically what's going to go on there is a thermostat. We're going to change this from a hot air choke This is where the hot air came up off that tube all the way down to the exhaust manifold, which I can't stand. This is going to be this will have to be capped off, okay? And we're going to go with an electric choke. Let me show you that. That's what's in this box. What you get is your thermostat, which is that coil of wire right there, and you get a gasket, okay? Now this is called the choke housing or the thermostat housing. A lot of people just refer to this whole thing as the choke. It's actually a thermostat, and what it does is the coil spring reacts to heat. As it gets colder, it moves one way, and as it gets hotter, it moves the other, you know, as far as coiling up or uncoiling. And this little thing right here, this little arm that looks kind of like a little dog leg sticking out there, it fits up in this slot right here. So as that coil spring, let me move this on down here, kind of give you an idea what I'm talking about. All it does is control the butterfly. Get things out of the way here. Oh, come on. This thing's getting heavier and heavier the more I put on it. All it does is this little thing, it controls the butterfly, see? You just move back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So as this spring coils up or you know, uncoils, it moves this rod and it opens and closes your butterfly, which gives you faster or slower idle in the morning, or used to. You know, nowadays it's all fuel injection, but this will have to go on here like this, and the whole thing will screw on using these screws here. I got 1 screw, 2, and 3. Plus there's a this thing requires a ground. It needs to be grounded here. That's why there's this metal on the outside. Being an electric choke, the carburetor becomes the ground, because the carburetor is connected to the intake manifold. And so there's a ring that goes around this thing, and I'll get it out in a second and show it to you. It slides over the top, you know, the screws go through that ring, and then that ring makes connection with this metal piece right here that goes down inside, as you can see right there. And there's your ground. And later on, I'll hook a wire, just a regular, you know, just take a little, you know, connector and plug it on there, and I'll connect the wire to the positive side of the coil. You don't want power to this thing except when the car is running. You don't want, you know, when you shut the key off on your car, you want power to be removed from this thing. Otherwise, you'll sit there and just drain your whole battery down to nothing. You know, probably, I don't know, it probably wouldn't ruin this, but it'll flat drain your battery down overnight. You come out and start your car, and you know, you can't hook it to a constant power source, is what I'm saying. You hook it to a power source that only comes on when you start your car. Got it? Got it. Let me get the other stuff I took off this carburetor and another carburetor, and let's see if I can't put enough pieces of parts together to get a choke on here. Well, here we have the old choke, and as you can see, it's pretty mangy on the inside. It's been there for quite a while, you know, compared to this one. You can see the difference between the two. You know, this is not something, and it even has an arrow on the outside that tells you lean, how to mix it lean and not so lean. Lean meaning less gas, more meaning more gas, you know, as concerning the position of this right here. Because the more it's closed, the more gas is going to suck. The more it's open, the more air it sucks, and then when you finally reach that happy medium where you get just the right mixture of air and fuel, then your engine runs nice and even, okay? Now, the ring I was talking to you about, this is the old gasket. This is the old choke. The ring I was talking to you about that has to make contact, it has to make contact with this. Now, it makes contact not with this surface up here. It makes contact right here along this, right along the ridge. So this is the ring I was talking to you about. I'm going to shine it up a little bit, clean it up. This will go over the top like so. And it will make, matter of fact, this thing's got contact on both sides. How about that? Anyway, it'll make contact. Just get this on the others. There we go. It'll make contact just like that and press down on both sides against the metal right there where they both meet, okay? Nothing to it. And then of course our little gasket will go up here, up in here like so, underneath these screws. And this thing here will go down, and these screws here will go through each of these holes. 1, 2, 3. I mean, we're talking easy stuff here, okay? Alright, let's get this mess off. It only requires this screw and this screw down here, and then you got to take the screw out of the center shaft, which is a Phillips. That's got to come out. And I think, well, no, we got another one here. We got this one, and this one in order to remove that entire thing along with this. You have to get, I don't think it'll come off unless I unscrew the screw down here. But we're fixing to find out, aren't we? Well, son of a gun, it will come off. All I have to do, I don't have to take that screw out. All I have to do is unclip this thing right here, and it'll slide right off that shaft, and the entire thing will come right off. Let's do that. All right, let's do a little bit of cleaning on this. By the way, here's where that gasket was sitting, and it was kind of hanging out like this here. Oh my goodness, we'll get rid of that. Let's see if this is the one I want for here. No, that is not the one I want. Let's dig around in the box. That's the one I want. There's two different kinds and two different sizes in there. I just wanted to show you that. Now we're going to do a little cleaning on this thing. Hot air would come up this tube right here from that, and it would come up in here, and there's a hole inside the barrel there. See that other hole right there? You always got to look for holes. Every time you take something apart, you got to look for a hole. Anyway, the air would come up and go into here, and from there it would come up, wind up in here somewhere, and it would help with the vaporizing the gas a little bit, warming it up, and who knows, you know, it has something to do with the secondary gas mixture, explosion, temperature. Doesn't matter. Who cares, you know? All I know is I have to put that, I got to clean that up, and I've got to put this gasket on there. Now here's something I think you should see. I cleaned this barrel out earlier, you know, with a Q-tip and some alcohol. But then, you know, I just ran some of this carburetor cleaner through it. Just gave it a spray. Now, let's see if there's a difference between the alcohol and the carburetor spray. Oh, I would say there's a big difference, isn't there? Alright, we're going to make that a little bit cleaner before we stick it back together, because there is a little piston that has to go back down in there. I do have the piston. Well, we have run into two very minor problems. One, let's go ahead and this as I said, this is the old cap. Let's get this over here out of the way. The new cap would go on with that there. Again, I told you that slot is where that little dog leg looking thing at the top there fits into. So let's get it in there. There we go. Now when I do that, I can't get the top to snap all the way down. It won't go all the way down. It just won't fit. So did they send me the wrong one? No, they didn't send me the wrong one. I'm going to have to do a little shaving, a little modification to get it to fit. It's just, you know, it's what, a 32nd or less, 64th of an inch I need to take off of one of these to where it'll go back down and on there. And this piston, by the way, this little piston, that's exactly what it is. I'm going to have to remove this center thing right here, take out that Phillips screw, get rid of this one, and put this one in here with the piston. Now that's just a heavy weight, is all that is, and it fits down in this barrel right here. So in the morning when you come out and you know when you shut your car off at night, it pretty much stays in this position all the time. Well, even though it's hooked to this thing right here, and even though that thing is hooked to this spring right here, the spring will unwind or whatever it does when it gets cold. But this will pretty much stay the same way. It's just all the the mechanisms and everything are holding it. But when you come out in the morning and you would hit your gas, what happened was this thing would close. And what caused that thing to close? It would just flop on down there like that automatically. As soon as you touch the gas pedal, it would release it, cause it to go. And what caused that to happen was this little heavy-weighted little piston. Okay, that piston would slide down the barrel because it's connected to this right here. And then in turn is connected to this, which in turn is connected to this, which in turn is connected to this, which in turn is connected to that, okay? It's just a heavy weight. It was kind of an ingenious idea, actually. It just fell down in there, caused it to open up. Well, all I'm going to do is take my little cutting wheel here and just kind of shave that down just a little bit. I may have to do a couple of them to get it to go, but not very much because it almost goes in, just not quite. I don't want to cut the plastic on this thing. I want to be able to, it's got to be able to turn left and right after it gets a screw, you know, the screws go on and it's held in place. I have to be able to go left and right with it. So let's see if I can barely do it. Well, that's all it took. A little bit of shaving and just, it's barely, because that's very thin walled, if you'll see down there. Each of those things has a very thin wall where it touches the black plastic. You got to be careful. Now, it does thicken up as it gets deeper, but you want to be careful. And then I followed it up with a little bit of sanding with some emery type paper. And then, yeah, she fits good now. She'll clamp right on down there when I put the screws in. Well, guess what? It is coffee time. I'll tell you what, before we head inside for a cup of coffee, let me go ahead and I'm going to grind off the head of this screw right here. So it'll clear that long adjustment screw when it finally comes out of the navel jelly. Just going to take it down just a lick. And that's all it's going to take to do that job. Look at there, old 64 goat. Look how I did that. You know, my dental skills are getting better and better every day with this rotary tool. You said you needed a front tooth made out of wood? I can do it for you. I can grind it on down there and then, you know, drill a hole up in there into your gums. You know, with my little rotary tool here, a little JB Weld, man, we'll put you a nice little wooden tooth right up in there. You need to hop a plane and get down here because my skills are getting better every day. Well, it is the next day, and today we're going to get everything back on the carburetor that needs to go back on that I can possibly think of. Do we miss a part? I don't know. Will we miss a part? I don't know. Alright, first thing we're going to do is remove that rusty screw from the navel jelly. Then we're going to remove the center thing here, and hopefully I can replace it with this little mechanism right here. I hope that'll work. It may not work. I don't know. I'm going to give it the old college try. Then we're going to go ahead and put on our choke cover. Get everything done here. And last but not least, we're going to go ahead and put on our dash pot. Well, that's not last but not least. We got a couple other things. But we're going to put our dash pot on as far as major items go. We'll go ahead and put our fuel air adjustment screws in the front up here. In the front up here. We'll screw those in. And then we'll of course tighten up all of the top screws here. I'd like to get new. I may not do that today. I may go ahead and finish it all up and then pick up brand new lock washers. And you know, before the next video, go ahead and replace those. So I'll probably just leave these loose. The idea is to just get everything on as much as possible. So let's get started. I have a magnetized screwdriver here. Hopefully I can go down in there, grab a hold of that screw and pull it right out of there. Let's see. Well, the old magnetized screwdriver is not quite strong enough, so we're going to go down there with the big gun. We'll get it out of there with the big gun. There it is. Alright, hopefully all the rust is removed. It looks pretty good so far. Well, it looks fine. Lasts a long time. I think that turned out much, much better than I expected. Look at that. An overnight soak. Cleaned it all up. So let's go ahead and get it up in there. I'll probably screw it in until it sticks out. Oh, maybe, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch. A little less than 1/4 of an inch. Between, you know, maybe 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. We'll see. Well, one would hope, you know, that all you had to do was put the screw in and everything would be fine. But of course that doesn't work. Look how off alignment those two are. So what's causing the problem? Well, we have two things here. This thing here is going to have to come off and be straightened out. It's been bent inward. And this thing right here has also been bent inward. It's going to have to get loosened up and taken off and then bent outward. Unless I can hold on to this with something and then grab a hold of this and slightly bend it out. It depends on how far, you know, once I straighten this out, how far will it cover the end of this thing. If it covers it all, we're in good shape. If not, but I can see that this thing here has been bent inward, and so has this. That's kind of weird. Why is that, I wonder? By the way, some of you might say, well, why don't you just take it with a pair of pliers, you know, and just kind of bend it out this way? Not a good idea. Remember, aluminum base, okay, aluminum carburetor. And these screws could, if they bend easy, if they don't, you can mess up and break a piece off of your aluminum. We don't want that to happen, so we're going to take it off and do it right. Don't try to cut corners on these carburetors. They're very expensive to replace. You get my drift? There you can clearly see the bend. It was held on by this little C-clip, or E-clip, whatever you want to call it. So my job is to try to bend this out this way without damaging the rest of it. Fun and games coming up. pair of vice grips, you know, with some cloth in the jaws to hold the large part of the piece. And then we could use pliers to just grab it and bend it and straighten it out, but sometimes that's not the best way to go. Sometimes it's better to use a crescent wrench that you can adjust right down onto that baby, and you get much better leverage with the long handle, and you don't have to worry about squeezing the handles together. All you have to do is hold this and just use this, and it'll just hopefully straighten it right out. Alright, I think that's fairly straight. It may not be exactly perfect, but it's pretty good. Let's go ahead and slip it on there and see what happens. By the way, I'm going to put a little bit of grease on here. It will help a lot. Well, that's a lot closer than it was, huh? How about that? Okay. Now, this one here needs to be bent back toward me this way. And that should align it up pretty good. You know, there again, what I'm trying to show you here is don't get in a hurry on these carburetors, you know, when you put something together. This carburetor's been around a long time. And there's no telling how many people have handled it, messed with it, dropped it, screwed around with it, tried to interchange parts on it. You never know. And look what I've already done. I've replaced these brass tubes with aluminum because when the carburetor came in, the brass tubes are all broken except for one. And then after I did all this, I found out that I could buy the brass tubes in a set, but then I said, well, why should I? I mean, I've already got the aluminum. It's already in there, already cemented in. Just leave it now. Of course, if I need them, I'll take them out later and put the brass in. Meanwhile, back at this, let me take this off. Well, first I'll put this clip back on. Make sure I don't mess around, lose that. And then we'll go ahead and take this part off. I'm having a lot of trouble getting this nut off here, and I don't want to be forcing anything, not at this stage of the game. I'll just leave it where it's at, and we'll try for plan B. So what I plan to do here is I'm going to use two very small sets of vice grips that I have. I'm going to put this one from up underneath. I'm going to put it up underneath like this and clamp it onto there with, of course, the rag and the teeth. We got to still be careful. It's one of those take your time deals. And once we get a hold of it, and we can hang on to it and protect this from being broken or messed up any. I don't want to break off that rod right there or bend it in any way. And then I can take this other small set, once I get that done, and go up from underneath here and get a hold of that right there and bend this thing outward just a little bit. It doesn't need a whole lot, as you know. And you can see it's off by about that much. You can see how crooked this thing is now. We're about ready to go here. I got the vice grips hooked down here on the bottom, and then I'm going to, with the rag, I just got them right here. And instead of using the other set of vice grips back here, I think what I'm going to do is just stick with the old crescent wrench. And the crescent wrench can go up here like so, just like we did the other one. And then I can go ahead and it would use the leverage of the crescent wrench without, it's going to have to be very gentle. Keep your eye on this right here. This is the alignment we're trying to straighten out. It's pretty close right now, but I want it a little bit better. It's getting a little better. It's going to take two hands. I want to hold this other set of vice grips a little steadier. Alright, I think that's got it. Yeah, just about right. It's a little bit still in far a little bit, but we're going to leave it like that. I've got 99.9% contacts all the way around. That will do the job. With that done, our next big question is, will this thing here, with the little weight, will it go on here? Now, you see right here, this has a flat-sided, it's a hole with two flat sides. Does this have the same kind of thing underneath it? Let me take it off and find out. Well, lucky us, it sure does. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put the whole entire mechanism back on here. We'll put our little gasket here first. Then we'll put the entire thing back on, put the long screws in it, these babies right here. And then it'll be easier to work on to put this thing in. It'll be a lot more stable. I just don't want to be rolling it around and all this crap. Just get it on there, get it tightened down, and get this on that way. Well, the only thing that holds it on is the screw. Well, she dropped in slick as a whistle. You can see how that little piston's down in there. The problem is it kind of drags a little bit, and you don't want that. You want that to be nice and loose. So what I'm going to do, I don't know if it's the piston doing it or this mechanism up here might be dragging a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spray a little silicone down. You don't want to be putting grease down in there, at least not from my estimation. Grease will eventually harden up, and this thing here will never work at all. It has to flow freely, and I'm only spraying the silicone, which will disappear, to see if it'll actually loosen it up or anything. Yeah, that did loosen it up. So that's what's dragging down in there. It's kind of weird, huh? I don't really know how to keep that thing loose. Spray a lot of silicone down there, but it'll drip out the bottom here eventually. But it's nice and loose right now. It's supposed to really be loose. Of course, up here we're getting a little bit of tightness too. Let me see. A little silicone won't hurt any. Let's see what happens now. Let's try it over here. Right now I'm just trying to figure out where it's dragging. I guess it's just a combination of everything. Hopefully that'll work. Get better. I want it to be able to go like that when you step on the gas. Now we want that weight to pull that baby down in there. That's why I had to clean it really, really good with that Q-tip. Okay, let's go ahead and put our top on now, our gasket and our thermostat on top of it. Now once you get the gasket on, the top on, or the thermostat cover on, you want to turn it left and right, so make sure that your butterfly operates. That tells you got it hooked up. You've got the thermostat on the inside connected to it. If it's not moving, like right now, see it's not moving because I don't have it engaged all the way, but you want to make sure it's all the way engaged and your butterfly opens and closes. Then we'll go ahead and stick our ring on, which will give us our ground, and we'll put the 3 screws, and this will be done until it's time to connect up a connector with a wire that runs over to the positive side of the coil. Well, there you go, but I'm not sure we're going to get everything done in this video that I wanted to get done. It is really getting long. However, I do have one more rod I'd like to put in before we wrap it up, and that rod will go between this hole right here and this hole right here and this floppy little thing, that thing right there. So it goes in from the outside in like this toward the carburetor, and you see it has grooves in it. Each end has a groove. It requires a C-clip. Well, I don't have any new C-clips, but there is a set of C-clips on this old carburetor over here. I'm going to see if I can get them off and get them cleaned up. They're really rusty. If they break, well, I'm going to have to take a trip downtown to find some. Well, the 2 clips came out slick as a whistle. I was able to wire brush them off. They're in pretty good shape. A lot better than I thought. I thought they'd be about rusted through. However, whether we like it or not, we are at a stopping point. This is the rod that goes in here, and it goes in this hole down here that the clips go on. But take a look at what's happening here. If I bring this on down, it's way away from there. Not even close. If I turn it around the other way, I got the same problem. Going in from the other direction, we have it fit up here, but look how far away from the hole, this thing that's got the hole in it on the bottom, the big space. That is very, very weird. I am going to have to do a little looking around. You know, I can't turn this around because this is our fast idle step right here. I don't get it. I don't know what's going on here. There should not be that much space between the end of that shaft and this hole that's supposed to go in. Very weird indeed. I'm going to have to do a little studying on that. So guess what? Murphy has hit, and this video has come to a screeching halt. Until next time, I hope. This is John. Well, now wait a minute. Wait a minute. I may have already discovered a solution to this, but I'm still not going to do it till the next video. Let's go over here to our old carcass. This is the same thing I'm messing with right now. You can see there's the hole right here. It appears that this mechanism right here that has the step thing on it is different than this one right here. So it's possible I'm going to have to take this one off and put the one on it from the old carcass here. And that would take this thing with the hole in it and move it backward to where it would connect with this rod. And as you can see, it's all the way to the rear over here. I'll bet that's all I have to do is just remove this clip, pull this one off, exchange it with this one over here, and I'll bet we're back in business. So hang around for the next video to find out.